anyway, as you're saying,
Well, with the Valentine, I really wanted to work on it and get that diorama finished, but I just had to wait for the decals, and the decals finally came in after waiting so long, and now it's like, I don't feel like working on it, which is so unfortunate. I've put so much work into that.
All right.
Another shelf.
yeah, I've had that where you're just like, you first buy a kit and you're like, I really want to get started on it, and then you're like, oh, I'll just wait till I finish this one or what I'm working on. And then it's like takes a bit longer. Then when you finally finish, you turn to it and go, lost interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be like that.
Hence why I have like 30 kits that were all built with that intention. Yeah. Actually, I had to clean out. I took my stash out of the cupboard that they're all in because a guy needed access into the roof, and I stacked them all. And honestly, the stack comes up to about my shoulder height right now. I didn't actually realize how many were in there.
Jesus.
And that's just the large. That's just the large kits. I've got I got a separate shelf for all the small kits. Like ones that are just a bit too small to go on the shelf, like the 2 M8 Scots I've got, the couple of 72nd scale aircraft, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So it could be taller. It's just I've separated them into different categories.
And is that shelf queens or things that you haven't built yet?
I haven't started yet.
Ah, okay.
My shelf queens are currently sitting in a dusty corner in my desk. Thankfully usually hidden behind one of my computer screens, so I can't physically look at them, because if I do, then I'll be very triggered and I'll probably throw them out at some point. To be honest, there's an F100 Super Sabre that has so much putty on the wing roots and stuff that I'll end up having to remove the raised panel lines on them, which means that I'd have to try and figure out how to rescribe them, and it's just not a subject I'm that interested in to do that kind of thing.
Oh, that's understandable.
That is very valid.
And then there's also that weird, like, World War One seaplane thing that I started, but it's a resin kit, and also lost interest in that one. I only bought that for $5 at Canberra, so if that one goes in the bin, I honestly don't care too much right now.
I technically only... Oh, go ahead.
No, you first.
But I got technically just one shelf queen right now, and that's the Stugs. But I'm only setting that to the side so I can... Because it's just going to be a plain, like, muddy base. So when I go to build a base for my next armor kit, I'm going to pull it back out and build a base for it at the same time.
You don't have shelf queens, it's just you take so long to build something.
Exactly.
They're like they're borderline shelf queen work in progress.
It's like about 3 to 350 kits. And so at this rate, it's going to take me like 700 years to build them all.
I think you've hit that point of you'll never finish them.
No.
There will be kits that will be sold off in a state.
Oh, don't make me cry.
I've got 1, 2, 3 shelf queens right now. They're all dioramas. 4. We got 4 of them.
Any advance on 4? We have 4. Do we have 5? Do I see 5? Keep looking around. I'm sure you'll find something there.
I'm looking. Let me see. Those are all finished. Done. Work in progress. That just needs the plaque. Done. Whip. Done. Whip. Yeah, we're at 4.
I think half the problem is like when you're just sort of like you're constantly shifting what you want to build with how you feel. Like I've got 3 things that I really want to build, but at the same time I've just acquired a Sherman barrel for one of my M8 Scots, so I can convert it from the standard M8 into the prototype M8A1, where they tried sticking a Sherman cannon into the M8 instead of the howitzer.
Yes.
and then I want to turn that one into, instead of like a battlefield diorama or something like that, it would just be the prototype. It'll literally just be doing the prototypes. It'll be fairly clean. Have a guy standing there with a clipboard, have all the prototype markings on it. So it'll be that when it was at what's the proving grounds called?
Which one?
Fuck.
The one starts with A.
Oh.
God
God
fuck.
damn it.
Yeah, you had to say that.
Is it Aberdeen?
Yes.
Or is it? I always thought Aberdeen was British because it sounds like a very British name.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I think it was at Aberdeen. They have a so they got photos of it, which I've found. So the only thing I don't have is like it has like next to no markings on it, except for it has M8A1 stenciled on the side of it, which I don't have decals for, and I doubt you'll ever find decals for. So I have to find a way around that because it was a prototype. There's no real markings around it except for, and that's the weird thing. It wasn't called the M8A1, but it had this marking on it called M8A1. So it's weird. I did a lot of deep diving when I was at work and very quiet.
It'd be like
To be
that.
honest, I only buy and build models so I can have an excuse to nerd out.
Same.
Well, speaking of nerding out, shall we start the episode?
Might as well.
Yeah, that'd probably be the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think we should. So, welcome to the Micro Machines podcast. This week, we are going to be talking about the Nelson class battleships. A class of battleships I have a very hot opinion on. I think they are one of the better looking battleships of the Second World War, but a lot of people will highly disagree with me. It's a bit like Marmite. You either love it or you hate it. But before we go into the Nelson class, we shall do our usual introduction. So first off, you have me, Callum, coming in from New Zealand, enjoying a very nice winter right now. It's actually finally stopped raining and it kind of feels like summertime, although without all the heat.
Nice. Well, you got me, Greg, here in Kansas, working on some Tamiya kits, drinking a Ultra Strawberry Dreams Monster.
Very nice. You got me, Clint, in Indiana, and I got a Ice Mountain Water.
Sounds fancy for a bit of H2O.
Yeah, it's the cheap shit here.
That tracks.
But I mean, it's still good. It's actually really good spring water.
All right, so we'll get straight into the Nelson class, but first we have the HMS Nelson right here. I just want to get you two's opinion on how do you think it looks, because I think, in my opinion, I think it looks really good. But what do you guys think?
It looks Japanese.
It looks interesting. See, I'm not a big ship guy, but I'm looking at this and I'm like, eh.
I mean, it doesn't have a pagoda superstructure, but is that a flight deck on the back of it?
No, that's actually a canvas cover for the crew for like when it's really hot. They can have a bit of shade out of the sun, but not confined in a steel box.
Holy shit! The military caring about their people.
I mean, to be honest, that bit of deck when you got the shade up is probably like the ultimate barbecue area. To be honest. Right, so the reason I asked these two about the design, because the Nelson class battleships are pretty much they were invented solely as a loophole for the Washington Treaty. These things are the ultimate loophole to get as many 16-inch guns onto a battleship while staying within the treaty regulations. And I don't know about you guys, but I love a loophole.
Okay, that's why it looks kind of like a cruiser then.
They're actually pretty big. There's a reason they put all the guns forward, and we shall get into that the minute I figure out how to work a computer.
I believe in you, bro.
So, to start off, we have the design background. So, this all stems from the Battle of Jutland. The Battle of Jutland underscored the superiority of firepower and protection over speed and maneuverability. What I mean by that is during the First World War, you had the Grand Fleet, which didn't comprise mainly of battleships, but of battle cruisers. The way that a battle cruiser and a battleship differs is battleships generally prioritize firepower and armor, so they can literally brawl with other ships, and eventually someone will get a lucky hit, or you just, get overwhelmed with firepower. Battle cruisers focused more on speed and firepower, so they were the size of battleships, they had battleship-sized guns, but they didn't have the armor. They had more powerful engines, less armor, so they could go a bit faster. This is the doctrine of the British during the First World War. However, when they got into clashes like the Battle of Jutland, where they didn't need to use speed because they were in a firing line, a bit similar to, say, ye old wooden sail fighting where they're all lined up and just shooting the shit out of each other.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, basically, this was that. But 20th century, when you're in a firing line like that, you don't rely on speed. So basically, you're just going up with less armor than, say, the Germans. Even though Battle of Jutland is highly contested as who actually won, and losses were actually fairly minimal considering the number of ships involved. There were a few noticeable occasions during the battle where if the ships had more armor, they probably would have survived a bit better, we'll say. So, in response, the Admiralty designed a new generation of capital ships that embodied these lessons. Post-war plans called for exceptionally large and powerful vessels. The G3 class battle cruisers were to mount 16-inch or 406mm guns, while the N3 class battleships would carry 9 18-inch or 457mm guns, making them the most heavily armed warships of their time. These ships were intended to maintain Britain's naval supremacy and amid escalating construction programs in the United States and Japan. However, the 1922 Washington Naval Treaty abruptly halted this naval arms race, a decision I call bullshit on. They shouldn't have. Imagine what ships would have happened if they'd actually just let them build whatever they wanted at whatever sizes.
Yamato.
Well,
Just have more of them.
Let's face it, within about 3 years of the naval treaty, Japan just went, fuck this. We don't care. We're building whatever we want. Hence why the Yamato was actually built when everyone was still complying with the treaty. Have you seen 1939 Yamato?
No.
Compared to 1945? That thing looks cursed. It has like cruiser turrets mounted on the wings. It looks weird compared to 45 Yamato. All 4 ordered G3 class battle cruisers were cancelled, though materials already procured were later used in constructing Nelson and Rodney. The treaty imposed a maximum displacement of 35,000 tons and a gun caliber limit to 16 inches for all signatory nations. Britain succeeded in negotiating a definition of standard displacement, here's the loophole, that excluded fuel and boiler feed water, arguing that its global responsibilities required greater operational range than those of other navies. This concession permitted the inclusion of internal anti-torpedo bulges without breaching treaty limits. Basically, the English argued, we have an entire empire we have to service. Ships need to go further. We should be able to do X, Y, and Z. Including, I think, the fuel one. You have the anti-torpedo bulges that are usually filled with water. They filled them with fuel. It was just a giant loophole. That's why I love the Nelson class. They're just loopholes. Within these restrictions, British designers were forced to make significant compromises. The resulting Nelson-class battleships prioritized firepower and protection at the expense of speed, earning them the nickname Cherry Tree class for being cut down by Washington. I like that.
That's
The
good.
design drew, yeah. The design drew heavily from Eustace Tennyson de Ironcourt's, oh god, French name, earlier G3 and N3 concepts. To minimize the length and thus the weight of the armored citadel, all three main gun turrets were placed forward of the bridge. B turret, superflying over A, with X, sometimes referred to as C turret, located behind them on the forecastle deck, unable to fire directly fore or aft. A proposed O3 variant would have positioned X turret in a superfiring layout above both A and B turrets, sort of just stacking on stacking. Quick note here, do you know why they called them A? When a ship has, say, 2 turrets forward, 2 turrets aft, do you know why they call them A, B, and then X, Y?
Why is that?
So you know which turrets they're referring to, like what they're the forward ones or the back ones. You can't get them confused. If you have A, B, C, and D, then it could be like A, B, and C are the front, D and E are at the back, but they could be confused. Whereas you have it as A, B in the front, X, Y in the back. There's two, you got the alphabet that are on opposite sides. Makes things much easier.
I see.
Makes more sense, I guess.
Yeah. Secondary armament was grouped aft in enclosed director-controlled twin turrets at upper deck level. Another innovation derived from the G3 and N3 designs, which you can see up here.
Oh, so even these old class ships, they had directors on them.
Yep.
Didn't
To
know
save
that.
weight. Well, most of that stemmed from the First World War, actually. There was a lot of, when you start at the beginning of the First World War, by the end of the First World War, in ship design, it's something me and my dad always contemplate. You look at, like, the complexity of naval ships back in the 1910s and stuff like that, and then you look at, say, aircraft, which were kites with an engine on and a pilot holding on for dear life, and cars, which were, walking pace and very simple. And then you look at these highly complex ships. It's quite weird, Let's see. Where was I? To save weight, the ships were powered by a relatively small machinery plant, using only 2 shafts and large diameter screws, unlike the 4-screw arrangement typical of British battleships since Dreadnought. The boiler rooms were placed aft of the engine rooms, venting through a single funnel situated behind the bridge, which further shortened the armoured citadel. To compensate for reduced power, the hull was given an efficient hydrodynamic form to maximise speed within the design's limitations. So, referring to the top right corner here, the top one is the lighter armed battle cruiser, the G3. So you can see the turrets are slightly smaller. There's a slight change in configuration. And then the bottom one is the N3 battleship with larger caliber 18-inch. So, talked about them being a lot heavily armoured compared to, say, battle cruisers. So, armour weight was reduced through the use of an internal outwardly inclined main belt, sloping at 18 degrees from the vertical. This sloping increased effective resistance against plunging fire, something that, say, the Hood could have used.
No, it was fine the way it was.
The belt was 14 inches thick over the magazines and vital control areas, tapering to 13 inches over the machinery spaces and 6 inches for the gun magazines, which is a shit ton of steel, you gotta say.
Yeah, it is.
Like, let's see, 14 inches, that is longer than my ruler. And things could still punch through that. That's ridiculous. Torpedo protection was achieved with an internal system. Between the armour belt and the unarmoured outer hull were water-filled compartments backed by air-filled ones, forming internal bulges designed to absorb and dissipate explosive energy. The unarmoured outer hull plating served to initiate shell or torpedo detonation before impact with critical structures. This internal system replaced traditional external torpedo bulges, reducing hydrodynamic drag and helping to preserve speed. That's something you'll notice with older ships. You'll see down at the waterline these big bulges out the side. Those are the torpedo protections, whereas this has an internal one, which makes a bit more sense, to be honest.
A bit.
Below the waterline, protection included a double bottom 5 feet deep along with a layered defense compromising, and an empty outer compartment and an inner water-filled one. This torpedo defense system had a total depth of 12 feet and was backed by a 1.5-inch torpedo bulkhead. The system was similar to that employed on Hood and was rated to resist the force of a 750-pound TNT explosion,
Jesus
which
Christ.
is fairly substantial.
Yeah, I'd say so.
The armor layout followed the all-or-nothing principle, with vital areas ranging from the forward face of A barbette to the aft 6-inch gun turrets heavily protected, while non-critical areas were left unarmored. For the first time in a British battleship, a single armored deck 6.25 inches thick was introduced to resist plunging shellfire and aerial bombs. Additional protection included a 3.75-inch deck over the machinery spaces and a 4.25-inch deck over the stern, both laid over half-inch structural deck plating. Main turrets featured heavy protection with 16-inch faces, 11-inch sides, 9-inch rears, and 7.25-inch roofs. Barbettes were armoured to 15 inches. In contrast, the secondary turrets were only lightly protected with 1-inch non-cemented armour all round, mounted over half an inch of steel plating, which is still fairly decent against splintering and stuff like that, but they're not going to stop much else.
No.
And here you can see a cutaway cross-section for those watching on YouTube. You can see the shape of the hydrodynamic hull, ranging from the machinery spaces to at the magazines, with all the diagrams for how the armour was all sloped and how it all worked, for reference. Up next, we have a very unique feature of the Nelson class, the superstructures. You can see they are quite interesting to look at. They have a very weird shape. If you actually look at them, they're not square or, they're very angular. There's a reason for that. The Nelson-class battleships featured a large octagonal superstructure, nicknamed the Octopoid by their crews and informally referred to as Queen Anne's Mansions, due to its resemblance to the 14-storey residential block opposite St James Park Tube Station in London. This distinctive superstructure provided spacious and weatherproof accommodations for navigating officers and any embarked flagstaff, which is strange for a British ship of any kind, considering that during this time they quite liked having open cockpits for crew, including their destroyers. Doing those nice long freezing cold Arctic convoys with an open bridge, so you're standing out in the freezing cold at night. Yeah.
Sounds like a
Great
good time.
great for visibility, comfort level, however.
That's a junior officer's job right there.
That's like, you gotta earn warmth. To conserve weight, the superstructure was only lightly armoured against splinters, with the exception of the emergency conning tower at its base and the trunking for the main gun directors mounted above. Further weight-saving measures including the use of aluminium for internal fittings and fir rather than teak for the deck planking. However, in the late 90s... Who needs teak? You can just have fir. However, aluminium, if that catches fire, you're fucked.
Yeah, but teak is pretty light to begin with.
I know. What's fir, like one stage above balsa?
It's a little bit more, but I don't know. It's like you think the trade-off for teak, since teak weathers seawater very well.
If it was fir, then you'd have to varnish the fuck out of it a lot. Which
I think so.
I guess it gave the juniors something to do. However, in the late 1920s, teak was retrofitted after concerns arose of the original fir decking could not withstand the structural stress caused by firing a full broadside. So
there we go.
It did get teak in the end. Despite their innovation, the Nelson-class ships had notable compromises. The aft placement of the superstructure affected handling, particularly in strong winds and at low speeds, where it acted like a permanent mizzen sail, causing the ships to weather vane or turn into the wind. Captain Hugh Beanie, who commanded Nelson in the late 1920s, acknowledged this behaviour but stated that if this is kept in mind, no real difficulty should be encountered in any circumstances. Although this characteristic posed some challenges in tight harbours and during docking, it never resulted in a serious incident. Binney also sought to dispel a prevailing belief that the Nelson class was inherently unmanoeuvrable. Reflecting on both his and his predecessor's experience, he asserted, in the early stages of the ship's first commission, there was a general misconception that the Nelson class were unhandy and difficult to manoeuvre. Both my predecessor and myself, however, very soon discovered that this opinion was entirely fallacious. What an interesting word. Sounds rude. In calm weather, the ship...
like a slur.
We all know Garrison knows all of them.
We know you have a small little book in your breast pocket at work. In calm weather, the ship's manoeuvring capabilities are no way inferior and in many ways superior to those of Queen Elizabeth or Revenge. Unquote. However, the class did exhibit difficulties when moving stern. This was largely due to the use of a single central rudder located outside the propeller wash of the twin screws, limiting its effectiveness in reverse. To be honest, boats don't like going backwards. Having growing up on a boat, they don't like going backwards at all.
Yeah, it's not a good thing.
No, it's just the hydrodynamics of rudders and props and placements. Just it's not like a car. Yeah. At sea, overall handling was considered good. Lieutenant Commander, later Rear Admiral, Gattaca, horrible name, of the Royal Australian Navy, makes sense now, who served as navigator aboard Nelson and later Rodney during 1941-42, noted that both ships had a relatively tight turning circle, particularly when turning into the wind, and presented no difficulty navigating through confined passages. In fact, Nelson and Rodney were reportedly the only battleships never to collide with the Boom Gate vessel while passing through Hoxha Sound at Scapa Flow. Down here we have a picture of the main superstructure. Here you can see the aft secondary batteries right there, the 152mm secondary guns.
Nice.
Nice looking, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Now on to the fun stuff. The guns, the armament. So, the Nelson-class battleships were equipped with the High Angle Control System, or HACS, for anti-aircraft fire control, and the Admiralty Fire Control Table Mark I for surface fire control of the main armament. Their primary battery consisted of 9 16-inch guns mounted in triple turrets, the only Royal Navy battleships completed in such an arrangement. And they also were some of the biggest that the British had at the time. Of course, when this was around, you had stuff like, say, you had the Queen Elizabeth class, which only had, I think they only had 15-inch guns. You had King George V only had 14-inch guns, I think. The Revengers only had 15-inch. So I think that at the time, the Nelson class had the bigger guns of the lot, but I'll need to double check that one. A similar configuration was planned for the Lion-class battleships laid down in 1939, but those ships were cancelled in 1942. A key innovation of the Nelson class was the all-forward arrangement of the main armament. This layout allowed for a shorter armoured citadel, concentrating protection and saving weight, an idea later emulated by the French Navy for the Dunkirk and Richelieu-class battleships. The BL 16-inch Mark I naval gun represented a departure from early British design philosophy. Traditionally, Royal Navy guns fired heavy shells at moderate velocities, but the Nelson-class guns adopted the German approach of using lighter shells at high velocities, a shift influenced by British evaluation of captured German equipment after World War One, the ones that weren't scuttled in Scapa Flow.
I was just going to say that.
There weren't many German ships around after the First World War, mainly from the Germans themselves.
Yeah.
How unsporting. I mean, that's just poor sportsmanship. It's not cricket. However, subsequent British testing produced mixed results. 2 different rifling types were trialled, leading to inconsistent barrel wear and dispersion. In some cases, mixed barrel types were even installed within the same turret, which contributed to accuracy issues. No kidding.
That's a smart idea.
Yeah. That's like putting rifling on one rifle and one smoothbore on a double barrel shotgun and trying to fire slugs.
Figure it out.
Over time, barrel wear was managed to by reducing muzzle velocity and trialing longer, heavier shells. However, introducing new shell types required costly modifications to handling equipment during a period of limited naval funding. The decision to use triple turrets to conserve displacement presented further challenges. Early issues with loading and ammunition handling machinery were compounded by the increased weight of the triple mount compared to a twin, which placed significant strain on turret roller bearings. This problem was eventually resolved through the addition of spring-loaded vertical bearings along conventional horizontal ones. Despite this complexity, the system proved reliable. In 1929, a turret crew with 2 years' experience successfully loaded and fired 33 consecutive rounds without incident. However, the sophisticated and relatively delicate equipment required regular servicing throughout the ship's lives. As a result, the BL 16-inch Mark I was generally not considered a success as the earlier BL 15-inch Mark I. The subsequent BL 14-inch Mark VII, used on the King George V class, reverted to a heavier shell and lower velocity, though it too was hampered by an overly complex system and sometimes was unreliable in its quadruple gun mounting. There was also an issue with quad guns where all guns would fire at the same time and the muzzle blast side by side, because they were a bit closer together, affected accuracy as well, something that the French battleships like the Dunkirk had. Turns out if you put too many guns side by side, they kind of start screwing with each other.
No.
Who would have thought?
Right.
Armament Part 2. This bit, we're going to look at some of the downsides that the Nelson and Rodney had. Not to say that they were abject failures. I mean, you know, when we go into their ship's history, you'll see that they actually had some fairly decent careers, but they still had a few issues. So, gun blast effects also presented significant challenges. Firing trials revealed that discharging the forward A and B turrets at low angles caused substantial damage to weather deck fittings and made conditions below deck very uncomfortable. A persistent rumor claimed the ships could not safely fire a full broadside without risking structural damage. This was disproven during the battle against Bismarck, however, when Rodney fired over 40 broadsides, or approximately 380 shells, without major structural damage. Although damage to deck planking, upper deck fittings, bulkheads, sickbay equipment, and plumbing in the forward section was considerable. Even the shock shattered nearly every light bulb in the forward compartments.
So
just
yeah, I think it's right.
Just a minor inconvenience, but let's face it, firing 380 shells from 16-inch guns, you're going to have damaged something because that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Also, that's a lot of shells to fire and only get like 5 hits.
Yeah.
Firing the X turret at high elevation, 40 degrees and 30 degrees above the beam, caused serious damage to the forward bridge windows, which were originally arranged in 2 vertically stacked rows. As a result, firing in that arc was later restricted during peacetime exercises, so firing the guns were very conditional, we could say. You had to follow a set of rules of when you can and can't. Although tempered glass was tested, blast still caused window failure and filled the bridge with debris. Around 1930, oh yeah. Nothing like getting shrapnelled and spalled by your own guns.
It's good shit.
Around 1930 to 1933, Nelson's Bridge was redesigned. The window area was reduced and protective ledges were added below the new, smaller panes. A fully enclosed Admiral's Bridge was constructed atop the Captain's Bridge, and signalling lamps were repositioned one level higher and further aft. Rodney received similar improvements, though her Admiral's Bridge retained a slightly step-back position. There is also one other fairly problematic problem with these guns, which is probably a bit more of a concern than all the others, say damage to the ship. That can be fixed, but there's one little problem with these guns.
What's up?
The gun blast was problematic elsewhere as well. During the test firing, the operation had to be suspended after an observer under the foredeck reported seeing a bright red flash. The cause was later determined to be the concussion effect on the observer's eyeballs, a vivid demonstration of the extreme overpressure produced by the guns. Basically, they were starting to liquefy him.
Hell yeah.
It's like, don't worry, it's just the overpressure that's absolutely rocking your insides. You'll be fine. Your injury is not service-related.
Literally.
In the final phase of the engagement with Bismarck, Rodney fired two 24.5-inch torpedoes from her portside tube and claimed a hit, possibly the only known instance of a battleship torpedoing another. However, this is somewhat still not proved as to fact, we'll say.
Huh.
Earlier
Why
in the
would
same
you
battle,
put torpedoes on a battleship?
that was an early war thing. Usually battleships engaged at closer ranges than by the end of the war. So they were within torpedoing range, so it's kind of like, well, if you distract them with the guns and you fire a couple of torpedoes at them, they might not notice them.
Valid.
Hey, you should have a look at HMS Eagle, an early aircraft carrier that they made. The British decided to put 16 torpedo tubes on a carrier.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Earlier in the same battle, Rodney's starboard torpedo tube was rendered inoperable due to a near miss from one of Bismarck's salvos that jammed the sluice door. On the 27th of September 1941, Nelson's torpedo compartment nearly proved catastrophic when an Italian air-launched 18-inch torpedo struck near the port torpedo system, flooding the compartment behind the torpedo body room and allowing approximately 3,750 tons of water to enter the ship. Following the incident, yeah, just a bit of water. Although I don't think there were any injuries or any victims at all. Although I do believe that it went into someone in one of the crew's cabins, and he had a chest full of like food, like cheeses and stuff, and they were no longer edible.
Fucking Italians.
I know, right? Following this incident, Nelson's torpedo tubes may have been removed, although some sources suggest that both ships retained their torpedo tubes as late as 1945. So now we've talked generally overall about the design. We're just going to get into the ships themselves, because of course there's only two ships, the Nelson and the Rodney, so we might as well just talk about them both. Otherwise this will be a very short episode. So first off, the flagship, the Nelson. When Britain declared war on Germany on the 3rd of September 1939, Nelson and the Home Fleet began patrolling between Iceland, Norway and Scotland in search of German blockade runners. From 6 to 10 September, she operated off the Norwegian coast, and later that month supported the rescue of the damaged submarine HMS Spearfish. In October, she covered an iron ore convoy from Narvik. I believe that might have been the one that... what was the incident that they scattered and became lost?
No idea.
There's been a recent movie, I think a Norwegian movie, that looks really good. I think it's just called Convoy. The trailers look amazing. On 30 October, Nelson survived an attack by U-56 near the Orkneys. 2 torpedoes struck, but failed to detonate.
Oh shit.
I know that's a get out of jail free card. Following the sinking of the Rawalpindi on the 23rd of November by Scharnhorst and Gneisenau, Nelson joined in the unsuccessful pursuit. On the 4th December, she struck a magnetic mine off Loch Ewe, causing serious damage and flooding forward compartments. 74 crew were injured, but she remained under repair until August 1940. Upon returning to service, Nelson, Rodney and Hood were relocated to Rysauth amid fears of invasion. On 5th November, during the Admiral Shears attack on Jervis Bay, Nelson and Rodney moved to block its potential route, though the German cruiser turned south. On January 1941, the battleships, joined by Renown, were positioned south of Iceland to intercept Gneisenau and Scharnhorst, but the German ships withdrew after sighting British cruisers. On the 1st of April, Nelson was assigned to escort convoy WS-7 to South Africa, stopping at Freetown en route. During the return voyage on 18th of May, Nelson and the carrier Eagle unknowingly passed the disguised German raider Atlantis on the South Atlantic. After Bismarck was spotted on the 26th of May following the Battle of the Denmark Strait, Nelson and Eagle were ordered to join in the pursuit from the north of Freetown, but the German battleship was sunk before they arrived. On the 1st of June, Nelson escorted convoy SL-75 back to the UK. Days later, she was detached to intercept the German supply ship Neusenhelm? I don't know. Which was scuttled by its own crew when Nelson approached. She then rejoined the home fleet. It's got to be a bit of aura right there where you just turn up and they just shoot themselves. On the 11th of July, Nelson was assigned to escort convoy WS-9C bound for Malta with troops and supplies. After passing Gibraltar, the escort group became Force X and was joined by Force H in the Western Mediterranean. Italian aircraft attacked on the 23rd of July, though Nelson was not directly engaged. She joined Force H later that day and returned to Gibraltar on the 27th of July after the convoy reached Malta. From the 31st of July to the 4th of August, Nelson supported another Malta convoy, Operation Style, and Vice Admiral James Somerville transferred his flag to her on the 8th of August. Later, in Operation Mincemeat, which is the operation to deceive the Germans about D-Day. Very good movie, by the way, if you guys haven't seen that. Nelson and Force H escorted a mine layer to Livorno, whilst Ark Royal's aircraft bombed Sardinia as a diversion. On the 13th of September, she escorted Ark Royal and Furious as they launched 45 Hawker Hurricanes to reinforce Malta. During Operation Halberd, which began on the 24th of September, Nelson briefly sailed westwards as a deception move before rejoining the main force that night. The fleet was attacked by Italian aircraft on the 26th. A torpedo struck Nelson's bow, tearing a large hole and flooding forward compartments, as we said before. Though limited to 12 knots, she remained with the fleet to conceal the damage. After temporary repairs in Gibraltar, she proceeded to Rice, for full repairs which lasted until May 1942. Must say, it is pretty impressive. You can see ships with the bow of their ship ripped off in an explosion. They can still, sail. Thank God for bulkheads, right?
I think they just found, was it the bow of the New Orleans that got totally ripped off?
There's actually been a lot of them. There'd been a lot of ships. I think there's a British destroyer that had it done twice in its life. So it had its bow replaced 3 times. Yeah,
they just found it in Iron Sound. It's been lost for 80 years.
And they just found the front.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the rest of the ship.
So what happened to it? Well, the front fell off.
Papers right out.
After refitting, Nelson joined the Eastern Fleet, departing on the 35th May to escort convoys WS-19P and WS-19PF to Freetown and then Durban. She was recalled on the 26th of June to participate in Operation Pedestal, another major resupply mission to Malta. Reaching Scapa Flow on the 26th of July, she became flagship of Vice Admiral Edward Sfreet. The convoy sailed on 3rd of August, transited the Strait of Gibraltar on the night of the 9th and 10th of August, and came under attack the next day. Though Eagle was sunk and the convoy endured repeated Axis attacks, Nelson emerged undamaged and made no confirmed kills. She returned to Scapa Flow after the operation. Basically, she was just there to watch.
You can do it!
On October 1942, Nelson was transferred to Force H to support Operation Torch, departing on the 30th of October and arriving in Gibraltar on the 6th of November. On the 8th, Force H covered the Allied landings of North Africa against potential Italian naval interference. Not that the Italian Navy could do much. Well, they weren't really much, to be honest.
Yeah.
The Vice Admiral, now commanding Force H, raised his flag aboard Nelson on the 15th of November. In January 1943, Nelson helped escort a troop convoy from Gibraltar to Algiers. Sfreet temporarily moved his flag to King George V in May, then when Nelson returned to Scapa Flow to prepare for Operation Husky, also known as the invasion of Sicily. She left Scapa on the 17th of June and arrived in Gibraltar on the 23rd. On 9th July 1943, Nelson, Rodney, and Indomitable joined forces with Warspite, Valiant, and Formidable in the Gulf of Sirte to form the naval covering force for the invasion of Sicily. Which, that is a lot of battleships right there.
Yeah.
They patrolled the Ionian Sea to deter Italian naval interference. On the 35th of August, Nelson and Rodney bombarded coastal defences between Reggio Calabria and Pesaro ahead of Operation Baytown. On the 9th of September, they supported the Salerno landings, or also known as Operation Avalanche, with Nelson using her main guns in barrage mode against German torpedo bombers. That means that they would have been firing fucking timed fuse shells, wouldn't they? Which you land a couple of 16-inch high explosive time fuses in the middle of a squadron, that'll do some damage.
Yeah.
The Italian surrender was formally signed aboard Nelson on the 29th of September. That bit I did not know prior. She departed Gibraltar on the 31st of October to rejoin the home fleet. On June 1944, Nelson provided fire support during the Normandy landings, but was badly damaged by 2 mines on the 18th. Temporarily repaired in Portsmouth, she was sent to the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard on 22nd of June and returned to Britain in January 1945. Assigned to the Eastern Fleet, she arrived in Colombo on 9th July and became fleet flagship shortly after. Nelson operated off the Malayan coast for 3 months during Operation Livery. The Japanese in Penang surrendered aboard her on the 2nd of September 1945, and she witnessed the broader Southeast Asia surrender in Singapore in 12th September. Relieved as flagship on the 20th of September, Nelson returned to Portsmouth in November and briefly resumed duty as home fleet flagship before becoming a training ship in July 1946. She was replaced by Anson on October and became a private ship. I would have loved to have Nelson as a private ship.
Right?
It's like, what are you going to do? I have a battleship.
Right.
On 15th of April 1947, she suffered minor damage in a collision with the submarine Spectre. Nelson was placed in reserve that October and listed for disposal in May 1948. From June to September, she was used as a target for testing 2,000-pound armor-piercing bombs. On the 5th of January 1949, she was handed over for scrapping, arriving at Inverkeithing on the 15th of March to be broken up. I got to say, out of all the sort of equipment, it seems like ships have like the most like ungraceful ending.
Right?
either
It's like
targets
we're going to
or-
use you. We're going to shoot at you, and then we're just going to throw you into the scrap hopper.
yeah, and then we're just going to break you up and sell you for parts. You know, it's always a bit sad ships. You know.
Yeah, I would have probably been a good museum ship.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, like, would love to have these as like museum ships, but they are very costly to actually
Oh yeah.
like even just to keep them afloat is like impossible.
Mhm. Did you just hear that?
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
we had a lightning struck pretty close.
Oh, nice. So, for modeling reasons, I've brought up this little thing. If you are to model, say, the HMS Nelson, there was both of these ships went through a lot of modifications and stuff like that. I'll talk a bit later on about that. But here we have the two main color schemes for HMS Nelson. First off, by 1941, from 1920s to the 1941, she retains the standard dark grey all over paint scheme as standard with all ships. However, in 1943, she was repainted with this splinter or dazzle camouflage. You'll notice that Rodney got the same, but with different colors. Nelson primarily has a more green dazzle camouflage, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I still think it looks a bit better than just all over grey.
Looks good on her.
Yeah. If you are to paint that, though, you will hate yourself, especially if you're doing it in, say, 1 to 700 scale.
Is that a Mediterranean camouflage then? The green?
It's just more for it's just for disruptive purposes. I'm not sure why green. Possibly because it was in the Mediterranean most often, but where the water is a more of a greenish tinge to it. But I'm not too sure about why they chose that. So the color composition, you have two tones of green. You have a dark green and a lighter, sickly pastel color green. And then you have grey and white. Good luck masking that one up.
Yeah.
And if you want to build the HMS Nelson, you have a few options. First off, in 1/700 scale, you do have the Tamiya one. The Tamiya kit for the Nelson, it is very basic. You can get upgrades though. The company Big Blue Boy offers a upgrade kit for photo etch and metal parts and stuff like that. For that Tamiya kit, you get nine barrels for it, and you get 8 pages of photo etch.
Oof.
Yeah, that's let's go. Anyway, sorry. So that's in 1/700 scale. Dragon offers it in 1 to 350 scale. If you want to deal with a Dragon kit, Airfix has HMS Nelson in their weird 1 to 600 scale, and it's also a vintage kit, so buyer beware. No, Airfix just do all their ships in 1 to 600 scale for some reason. I built their 1 to 600 Bismarck. I wouldn't mind their King George V, to be honest. In 700 scale as well, you do have Trumpeter. Of course, you will have to, when you're building Nelson and Rodney, you will have to look into what year you want to build them in. Because if you're looking at, say, 1930s or 1944, very different in their composition of, equipment, radio antennas, masts, all of that. So you need to do a bit of research before deciding what year you want to do that. Trumpeter as well also offered the HMS Nelson in its 1944 configuration in 1 to 200 scale, which I have seen in real life. It is massive.
I bet.
Like over 1 meter long, I think. And if you really like the Nelson or you really hate yourself, Pontos model have a full photo etch 1945 detail up set. Includes a stained wooden deck, scribed brass, photo etch, 14 sheets of, 58 resin parts, 434 brass parts, 2 brass screws, 58 resin parts, 1 transfer sheet of dry transfers. It's pretty impressive, but holy god damn, that would I'd love to try it, but I don't think I'd manage to do that.
I have one of the big Ponto sets for the Indianapolis, and it is something.
It's a full kit in of itself, isn't it?
It is.
Like, even looking at the big blue boy upgrade, that's more photo etch than plastic at that point.
I couldn't imagine trying to do that in 1/700 scale.
I know, at least 200 scale, things are a bit bigger, but even then, that'd still be a shit ton of small little details.
Right?
Yep. But that was the HMS Nelson. Now we're just going to have a look at HMS Rodney. Also, for clarification, I have had to condense down both the ship's careers because they are quite large. They did spend the entirety of the war, so you're looking at 6 years. So I've had to shrink things down a bit.
Understandable.
So HMS Rodney, which is the one I prefer, actually. I mean, the two ships are the same, but I like the Rodney more than the Nelson. When Britain declared war on Germany on the 3rd September 1939, Rodney and the Home Fleet began patrolling, same as Nelson. On the 24th September, HMS Spearfish was damaged by depth charges in the Heligoland Bight. The fleet provided cover as destroyers escorted her home. German bombers attacked the fleet but caused no damage, thanks in part to Rodney's radar warning. In October, Rodney helped escort an iron ore from Narvik alongside the Nelson. On the 21st of November, Captain Frederick Dramful Hamilton relieved Fret as commanding officer. 2 days later, Rodney joined the unsuccessful pursuit of Scharnhorst and Gneisenau, following their sinking of the Rawalpindi. On the 29th of November, Rodney suffered serious rudder failure and had to return to Liverpool steering by engine alone. Repairs lasted until 31st December. That would have been a pain in the nuts.
That'd be a hard fucking journey.
When you're only using the propeller screws to actually turn, your turning radius is probably within 10 miles. Like, you ain't doing anything fast. Excuse me. After Nelson was damaged by a mine in December 1939, Rodney served as temporary fleet flagship until her sister's return in August 1940. She spent nearly early 1940 mostly at anchor, with occasional convoy escort duties. On the 21st February, steering issues forced her to return to Greenock. Later that month, she was visited by King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, and in March, Winston Churchill boarded her for a voyage to Scapa Flow. On 16th of March, Rodney narrowly escaped damage during a Luftwaffe attack. On the 9th of April, while operating off Norway, Rodney was hit by a 500 kg bomb. It caused minor damage, and injuries were not serious enough to force her out of action. She remained at sea until 17th of April. In June, she helped cover troops evacuating from Norway. Nelson resumed flagship duties in July, and Rodney moved to Roths. One day I'll figure out how to pronounce that. In August to prepare for a potential German invasion. She returned to Scapa in November for convoy escort duty. After the Jervois Bay was sunk by Admiral Scheer, Rodney and Nelson patrolled the Iceland Four Rows Gap. In December, while escorting convoy HX-93, Rodney was damaged in a storm, suffering leaks and flooding. Repairs began on the 18th of December, reinforcing her forward hull. Following her refit in January, Rodney joined in the unsuccessful search for Scharnhorst and Gneisenau. She later escorted convoy HX-108, and on the 16th of March, while with HX-114, she briefly sighted Gneisenau, which escaped at high speed, like a little bitch. Rodney rescued 27 survivors from a torpedoed merchant ship. On 10th of April, Rodney joined in the escort of troop convoy TC-10. While departing the Clyde on the 19th of April, she accidentally rammed and sank the armed trawler Topaz, with only a few survivors rescued. Oopsie daisy, we all have a bad day. HMS Rodney Part 2, Bismarck. Bottom right corner there, that is a photo of Rodney engaging with Bismarck. That's the moment Bismarck was actually hit.
Oh, that's not the hood exploding?
No, you can see Rodney right there. Pretty cool photo, actually. On 22nd of May 1941, Rodney joined the escort of the ocean liner MV Britannic, which I believe is the sister ship of Titanic.
Yep.
En route to Halifax. She was scheduled to continue to Boston for repairs and refit, carrying materials such as boiler tubes, 3 octuple pom-pom mounts, and several crates of Elgin marbles. No idea what those are. I have no idea. Probably some sort of ball bearing or something like that.
Probably.
Also aboard were 521 military passengers and a US naval attaché with important documents. Britannic was transporting civilians to Canada and would return with Canadian troops and airmen. Following the sinking of Hood by Bismarck on the 24th of May, Rodney was ordered to join in the pursuit. She left Eskimo to escort Britannic and continued with Somali, Mashona, and Tatar. After Suffolk lost radar contact with Bismarck early on the 25th of May, Captain Hamilton, I'm going to call him, correctly guessed she was heading for Brest and set course for intercept, briefly pushing Rodney to 25 knots, above her design speed, which caused mechanical issues. Because, as we said before, they weren't designed with speed in mind, more protection and guns. Later, despite Admiral Tovey's misdirected order to head northwest, Hamilton held his course southeast, suspecting Bismarck might head for a Spanish port. At 14:30, the Admiralty ordered a northeast turn, which he delayed until 16:20. During the window, Bismarck unknowingly passed just over the horizon, 25 nautical miles away. By 2100, with no contact made, Rodney resumed course southeast towards Brest. On the 26th of May 1941, an RAF Catalina spotted Bismarck, allowing Rodney and King George V to join up after Tovey corrected his course. That afternoon, Ark Royal launched 14 Swordfish torpedo bombers, which mistakenly attacked the cruiser Sheffield, fortunately without damage due to faulty detonators. Yeah, that's a day of fucked up. Like, can you imagine? It's like just as well the torpedoes didn't go off, which is still an inherent problem right there.
Right?
Like, why didn't they go off?
The American torpedoes?
Nah. If they were American torpedoes, they would have definitely sunk a friendly ship.
True.
A second wave that evening, equipped with contact fuses, hit Bismarck 3 times. One torpedo struck her stern, jamming her rudder and slowing her significantly. That night, Rodney fell in behind King George V. Although they could have caught Bismarck, Tovey slowed to conserve fuel, opting to wait for daylight. On the morning of 27th of May, Rodney sighted Bismarck at 8:44 and opened fire at 8:47 from 23,400 yards. She scored early hits, disabling the German ship's forward turrets and damaging the bridge. Bismarck returned fire but missed. As Rodney closed range, she launched torpedoes, one possibly hit. At close range, Rodney unleashed broadsides, eventually silencing Bismarck's guns with support from King George V, Norfolk, and Dorset. Rodney fired 378 16-inch and 706 6-inch guns before ceasing fire at 10:16, after which Dorsetshire sank Bismarck with torpedoes. I just like to put that in perspective. They started firing at 8:47 and then at 10:16 they stopped firing, so that's What?
Almost 2 hours. Well, no.
An hour and a half.
Hour and a half fire, yeah.
Yeah. And they fired a combined total of 1,000, over 1,000 and 1,100 or so shells. That's impressive. You gotta say. Ironically, Rodney sustained more damage from her own gun blast than from enemy fire. Her decks, piping, and structural supports were affected, and several main guns malfunctioned. Oops. Low on fuel, Rodney returned to Greenock on 29th of May, then sailed for Halifax on the 4th of June and reached Boston on 12th June for repairs. Her crew was given temporary leave, and Captain Rivet Cannock took command. After working up in Bermuda in August, she arrived in Gibraltar on the 24th September to rejoin Force H. Rodney left Gibraltar to join Nelson in escorting a convoy to Malta during Operation Halberd. During the mission, she accidentally shot down a British Fulmar fighter, and Nelson was torpedoed. Not a great start. Though Nelson initially kept pace, she had to turn back on the 28th of September, followed by Rodney and Prince of Wales. With Nelson out for repairs, Vice Admiral Somerville shifted his flag to Rodney. Rodney's time in Force H was brief. Her only other task was covering 2 carriers flying off fighters to Malta. On 30th of October, she was ordered home to replace Prince of Wales in the home fleet in case Tirpitz attempted a breakout. Departing on the 2nd of November, Rodney reached Loch Ewe on the 8th before sailing to Haversford, Iceland. Highlights of her stay included a visit by actor Douglas Fairbanks Jr., then serving aboard a US battleship. She briefly transferred to Scapa Flow in December, but returned to Iceland in mid-January in 1942 to serve as a training target for US Air Force bombers.
Oh.
Don't worry. By that time, the US Air Force was totally known for actually hitting things.
Yeah.
On 10th February, Rodney proceeded to Birkenhead for refit, staying in Liverpool until the 5th of May. She returned to Scapa to work with Nelson, and the sisters began escorting convoy WS-19, reaching Portuguese Angola before turning back on the 26th. Rodney began experiencing steering issues again, and docked for repairs at Freetown on the 5th of July. Departing on the 17th of July, she returned to Scapa on the 26th, where further repairs were arranged. She really didn't like steering. I think that one incident she had early on just caused just constant issues.
I was saying, it seemed like she spent most of her time in dock.
Yeah, just having to have rudder issues repaired. It's a bit like, when you injure your back and then you're just forever plagued with back injuries. I should know. It's a bit like that. Rodney left Scapa on the 2nd of August 1942 for convoy escort duties, but was redirected to join convoy WS-21S for Operation Pedestal. Vice Admiral Sir Bruce Fraser was aboard as an observer. Rodney joined Force Z, which was to turn back before the convoy passed through the Sicilian Narrows. The convoy was spotted by Axis forces after passing Gibraltar on the 10th, and attacks began the next day with the sinking of Eagle by U-73. That evening, Rodney survived attacks by bombers and torpedo planes, including dodging torpedoes. Her gunners claimed 1 Italian bomber. Later that day, she fired her main guns at incoming Italian torpedo bombers in a defensive barrage. Near misses damaged her steering, and at 1842, she was attacked by Ju-87 dive bombers. 1 bomb bounced off X-turret, wounding 4 crew. Boiler and steering issues forced Rodney to slow to 18 knots. She reached Gibraltar on the 14th of August for temporary repairs, but heavy seas during her return to Scapa worsened her condition, and she was sent to Ross, for further work. Repairs finished on the 16th of September, and Rodney was returned to Scapa on the 23rd before moving to Loch Carnborn to serve as a training target for frogmen preparing for Operation Title against Tirpitz. She returned to Scapa on the 29th and spent October training for the North Africa landings. Winston Churchill visited on the 10th of October to thank the crew for their role in Pedestal. On the 23rd of October, Rodney sailed for Gibraltar and rejoined Force H. Force H provided distant cover for the landings at Algiers and Oran in case the Vichy French or Italian navies intervened. Rodney was assigned to support the naval task force at Oran on 8th of November. Although the French warships at Mers el-Kabir had been dealt with, 4 coastal guns at Fort du Santon still fired on the British. Rodney fired 16 main gun shells, but paused due to a reported submarine. The French did not return fire. Funny that.
Yeah.
If you have,
you're saying the French surrendered again?
No, I think they just widened up that if you're in a stationary target and the British are firing 16-inch guns at you, you might not want to poke that bear.
Yeah, it's either or. I mean, you're
Yeah.
an unsinkable ship on land, so.
Later, she resumed shelling, and the next morning the fort opened fire again, nearly hitting Rodney. Moving further out, she continued bombardment with a land spotter's help. Despite initial effect and nearby American troops, Rodney kept firing at their request until the French surrendered. That's basically just pitting them and just hitting them until they say, okay, I've had enough.
Right.
Rodney stayed in the Mediterranean until the 7th of May 1943, then went to Devonport for a brief refit until May 28th. She arrived at Scapa on the 3rd of June to train for the Sicily invasion, Operation Husky, and rejoined Force H. Rodney saw no combat during the landings, but endured frequent air raids while docked in Malta. On the 31st of August, she and Nelson bombarded coastal guns near Reggio di Calabria, ahead of the Strait of Messina crossing, Operation Baytown, destroying an ammo dump. Rodney supported the Salerno landings on 9th of September, mainly using anti-aircraft guns. Captain Robert Fitzroy took command on the 25th of September, and she returned to the UK on the 5th November to rejoin the home fleet. On 29th December, during night gunnery exercises with the French battleship Richelieu, Rodney suffered severe storm damage, causing flooding. Rodney left Scapa on the 16th of January 1944 for repairs, focusing on seaworthiness rather than fixing persistent steering and boiler issues. At that point, they kind of just went, fuck it.
Right. It's like, it's a gremlin. It's never going to go away.
Yeah, no, we're not going to fix it, so we're not going to bother with it. Over the next months, Rodney trained in gunnery, including shore bombardment and anti-aircraft drills. Though initially held in reserve for the Normandy landings, she fired on coastal guns near Le Havre on D-Day, 6th of June. That night, she accidentally rammed and sank LCT-427, killing all 13 crew. Another LCT then collided with her bow, causing hull damage. Rodney bombarded targets near Caen over the following days, firing hundreds of shells and contributing to the city's devastation. Good job.
Seems like both these ships have had more their fair share of friendly fire incidents.
Yeah, there's just, an LCT battleship. I think the LCT should kind of try and get out the way a bit more. I think they're a bit more maneuverable.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's not like these battleships could turn on a dime or stop within, I don't know, half a mile.
Especially this one, it could barely turn at all, it sounds like.
Well, they could when the rudder worked. She took shelter from German attacks off Juno Beach and supported Operations Epsom, Windsor, and Charnwood through July, sometimes firing beyond normal range by listing the ship to increase gun elevation, similar to what was the American battleship that did that during D-Day? Was it the Washington?
It might be the Washington.
One of those ones. They flooded one side of the ship to lift the guns up.
Yeah,
I think that was for the Pont de Hoc mission.
sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure.
Rodney fired over 500 16-inch and 450 6-inch shells during this period. On 12th of August, she bombarded German artillery at Alderney to reduce disruption to Allied operations, which, if you go on YouTube and search up Rodney and HMS Rodney and Alderney, there is a British Pathé video with firing with camera crews on board and also from another ship watching that. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Firing 75 shells, but only lightly damaging the battery. After brief repairs in Portland and Devonport, Rodney escorted Arctic convoys to Murmansk from September 1944. She became Home Fleet's flagship in October and mostly stayed in Scapa Flow, visited by King George VI and Queen Elizabeth in late 1945. Rodney moved to Portsmouth in November 1945, then to Rosyth for final surveys and patching. She was placed in reserve and allocated for scrapping in March 1948. And that was the very end of the Nelson-class battleship, unfortunately.
Mm.
So, over the years, as I said, Nelson and Rodney did go through a lot of modifications. I couldn't find a complete list for Nelson, but I do have a list for Rodney, and we're going to go through those, because, again, if you want to build one of these battleships, you do have to consider what time period you are building, because then you have to figure out all the modifications and all the changes they had, because they did have a lot of changes. They replaced a lot of things. So you kind of have to do a bit of research into these if you want to get it accurate, which I know some people will and some people won't. But for those who will, here are some of the modifications. By March 1930, high-angle directors and rangefinder replaced by circular platform for HACS Mark I director. July 1932, single 2-pounder guns and starboard torpedo director were removed, replaced by octuple 2-pound pom-pom mount on starboard funnel side, as you can see down in the bottom right there. 9-foot rangefinder added to rear of bridge roof, port side pom-pom mount added years later with AA directors on the bridge. 1934 to 35. Two quadruple Vickers 0.5-inch AA guns added to forward superstructure. In 1937, aircraft catapult was added on X-roof, collapsible crane added near for float planes. The Fairy Swordfish float plane was replaced by a Supermarine Walrus amphibian, as you can see up here on the bottom, on the top right. In October 1938, another octuple pom-pom mount added up on quarterdeck, prototype 79Y radar installed. This was the very first battleship with that radar. 1940, she had a refit, Type 79 radar upgraded to the Type 279, and two 20mm Orlican AAs were added to the B turret roof. 1941, she had the Boston refit, they're calling it. Orlicans replaced by quadruple 2-pounder mount. Two octuple 2-pounder mounts replaced aft 6-inch directors. Added radars added the Type 281, 271, and 284 gunnery radars. In 1942, she had another refit, 17 20mm Orlicans added, which is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a decent firepower upgrade. Quadruple 0.5-inch mounts replaced with Mark III pom-pom directors. 3 more Mark IIIs added to aft mounts with Type 282 radars. The HACS Mark I was replaced with the Mark III, 4 barrage directors with Type 283 radars added for the main guns. Radar upgrades. She went from the Type 271 to the Type 273, added the Type 291 early warning and the Type 285 fire controlled radars. The 1942 repairs, she got 4 more Orlicans added on quarterdeck because you just can't have enough.
Yeah, there's room here. Just stick a couple more.
Yeah, we can fit one more there. There's a gap there. There's a gap there. If we shift that around, there's a gap there for another Orlican. Why not? 1943, gun shields added to the 4.7-inch guns, and the catapult was removed from the X turret roof. Additional Orlikins added during 1943 refit, 36 single, 5 twin mounts, a total of 67 Orlikins were added.
Jeez.
In 1944, 2 more Orlikins were added, and Type 650 radio jammer added for the Normandy landing support. So we are up to, so that's 69 Orlikins added, with 17. You're looking at about 90 Orlikins so far. And that was the final modification. Just like the Nelson, the Rodney also had a change of paintwork. So from 1929 to 1941, she retains the all over dark grey. 1942, she got a paint scheme change, just like the Nelson. However, this one focuses more on a dark grey scheme, disruptor scheme, slight greenish tinge to them, but more of a bluish grey looking, focusing more around the rear and back as opposed to the Nelson, which had most of its disruptive scheme up front, covering the turrets. The Rodney's focuses more on the centre and aft around. Also, another thing to look into, you'll notice even between 1941 and 1942, the radio interior, antenna, aerials, all the rigging also changes. So you will have to try and find a blueprint or diagram for that specific year, because each time they do a refit, they put new equipment on, they need to change the antennas, the aerials, all the rigging wires, all of that. So one thing you will have to pay attention to is finding the correct rigging scheme as well. Because if you look at, say, from 1929, 1939, 1940, 1944, it changes quite a bit. So you need to make sure you find the correct one as well. So just another thing to add to that sort of research thing. I personally built the Rodney in 700 scale, and I modelled mine after the 1939, 1940 scheme when she was engaging Bismarck. So it's just something, another thing you just have to think about when building a Rodney. Speaking of, if you do want to build one, you do have a few decent options. First off, we have in 700 scale the Tamiya one. Again, same as the Nelson. It is basic for a 1/700 scale ship. Like it is, you can get upgrades for it. Big Blue Boy company has one for that. You can see down here, you get full deck. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 sheets of photo etch. You have turned gun barrels for the 16, the 4.7s, and the 6-inch guns. All the good stuff there, including a chain, because you need an anchor chain.
Yeah.
So overall, that's a really good kit to put together if you want to put it together in, say, 2 weeks. It's very fun, very good looking. Again, though, you will have to look up for what year you want to do it, because also there is an upgrader, because the design changes between 1939 and 1944 are quite stark. You can also get, I couldn't find a photo of it, can't remember the company who did it, but there is an upgrade you can get to upgrade it from 1939 to 1944 with everything included. So another thing to consider. 1 to 200 scale again, Trumpeter has the Rodney, as well as Pontos model having the 1942 detail set. So that includes wooden deck again, scribed brass 330 pieces, photo etch 14 sheets, resin parts 34, brass screws of 2, and 1 dry transfer sheet. So again, if you really love doing that kind of stuff, go for it. Trumpeter also has the HMS Rodney in 1 to 700 scale, although the colour scheme they have on that box art I do believe is not correct.
Yeah, it looks all grey. Like, almost white grey.
Down in the bottom right.
Oh, I thought you said the Tamiya one up there. Sorry.
The Tamiya one's fine. The Trumpeter one, the colour scheme, I can't find any reference to that one per se. I mean, if you look between the Trumpeter 700 and the 200 scale, they even have differences in the pattern and colors. So
Yeah.
you will need it. If you go through many sets, you will find differences. So you will need to do your own research when finding the correct camo scheme for the Rodney, because there are a lot of wrong things out there. And
It's Trumpeter.
and finally, from Ming, you have HMS Rodney in 1/700 scale. Did not know Ming did ships.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, I didn't know that Ming. I thought they were just branching out into like modern stuff and cars. I didn't know they did ships, because they even call it. This is the 1/700 Plesiosaurus series. So I didn't even know they had a water-based series. So would be if you've built this one, please let us know. I'd be very interested to see just how a Ming ship builds.
Can't be any worse than a Trumpeter.
Yeah, true that. And that is it. That is all we have for the Nelson class battleships. So, hope you guys all enjoyed that. I hope we've inspired you into building one of these, what I consider as some of the better looking battleships out there. You can disagree with me if you want. Everyone is allowed to have a wrong opinion. Right now, we're going to go into a brief intermission, then we'll get on to the usual rest of an episode, hobby news, works in progress, updates, stuff like that. But until then, we'll be right back. And we are back, and it's time for the hobby news. And I gotta say, a bit of slim pickings this week, has to be said. But either way, I'm sure we'll find something that we'll all like. First off, from TACOM. They're releasing a 1:350 scale Soviet destroyer, the PR-7 Gremyashny, 1942. The series of destroyers built by the Soviets from 1939, endured all throughout the war, and then later they were upgraded into missile carriers. But this is the 1942 variant. Gotta say, a lot of just looking at the box art release or whatever this sort of CAD rendering thing they released with all the things on it, doesn't look too bad. Looks like it's got quite a bit of detail to it. What do you think?
Yeah, I didn't know TACOM made ships. Just I didn't know Ming did either.
Yeah. I mean, I think they've done a couple, but they're like not too popular subjects. I think they're like done a lot of PLA stuff, which is probably why it's not popular.
Yeah.
But yeah. Either way, what do you reckon? Decent release, decent subject. I mean, the Soviet Navy, the Second World War Soviet Navy is not really well known, mainly because their destroyers couldn't participate in convoy escorts because they had a tendency of sinking in rough weather. They were only really suitable for inshore.
I mean, it looks pretty cool. I don't know what this ship actually looked like, but looks like that hull plating might be a little too thick.
Yeah, it looks a little bit overly out of scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one.
Yeah.
And as well as the Russian, they have the Chinese version. So the PLA Navy Type 07 destroyer, the Anshan, is basically the PR-7 destroyer. They were bought from the Russians by the Chinese after the war and modernized somewhat and renamed as the Anshan. So basically the exact same, but you can see there are a couple of differences in the modernization programs. So I think the PLA version actually looks better just because it's got a bit more stuff to it. But again, you'll probably have the same issues. It does look like that you do get a lot of photo etch, railings and antennas, stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah. It's always good, like especially like handrails. You get a lot of kits that just don't supply hand railings, and you kind of need them.
That's all the look of it.
Yeah. So, not sure how popular those ones would be, but we'll see. You never know. I might be wrong.
Yeah. 4 out of 10.
Yeah. Gecko Models bringing out more soft skin trucks. This one is the British GS truck 30 CWT 4x2 Bedford OXD, the wooden cargo body. This is in 35th scale. Includes we do get photo etch parts and decal options. I do believe you get 4 decal markings. Model includes 1 driver figure and British fuel can set. Represents an early production example with the wooden cargo body. Model can be built with or without the rear canvas cover fitted. Although I don't know why you wouldn't want the canvas cover fitted. Means you can paint on the Qantas scheme onto it.
Yes.
And as I said, you get 4 markings with it. I gotta say, I would really love this kit.
I always say we need more soft skins. 8 out of 10.
Yeah, 8 out of 10. Gecko Model are bringing out all the soft skins, and I am so for it. Especially these ones. The Bedfords are really nice. Meng bringing out another 72nd scale armor. This is the Leopard 2A4 German main battle tank. For some reason, the box art, they're going for this weird AI-looking generated cartoon, comic book style, not liking this at all. Box art. I mean, the MG3 on top just looks weird. Yeah. Not a big 72nd scale armor fan, even though I've been building a bit of it, but we'll go into that a bit later on. But, yeah, it's another Leopard 2, so, I don't know. 7 out of 10, I guess.
Oh, that high?
Well, it'll be a Meng kit, so you know it'll be good to put together at least.
I mean, if they're this lazy with the box art, how lazy are they with the rest of the kit?
Yeah, that's true, because the box art does not have a lot of detail in it, does it?
No.
Even the picture of it, it definitely looks like a real photo that's been like AI cartoonerized type.
I mean, the one in the background looks more realistic than the one in the foreground.
Yeah. I don't like this direction with box arts.
No.
It almost might be as bad as that Airfix bloody. You see the Airfix advert that in one of the model magazines, and it was like the new Spitfire and Hurricane coming up, and then the photo, the main picture was Hurricane Spitfire with 5 different types AI mashup that looked absolutely horrible, and it's like, why would you allow this to get through?
Oh, I didn't see that. I try to avoid anything Airfix.
I'll send you a photo of it. It's horrendous.
I imagine.
Amusing hobby, bringing out an unmanned ground combat vehicle, the Uran-9. I think this is a Russian, isn't it?
I don't know. It's crazy looking.
No, it's pretty cool, I gotta say. So this is an unmanned. Basically, it's a
drone.
It's an RC tank that every man would love to have, to be honest. I do believe it includes wire-guided missiles, Strela anti-aircraft missiles on it, a 23mm cannon on top. It just looks like a baby tank with bad proportions, but I know Garrison would love to have this one.
Hey, I don't like anything modern. I don't like anything Russian, but 3 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll give it a 4. Originality.
Yeah.
2 releases from FC Model Trend in 48 scale. We are getting a Renault R35, also known as a much-loved tank by this podcast, and an M113, which is basic bitch for modeling. It's just a box on a set of tracks, but these are both 3D printed kits in 48 scale. Yeah,
5.
yeah, I'll give them both a 5. I mean, you try as you might, I don't think you could ever replace the Tamir R35 kit. You know,
Oh, hell
I think
no. That's a great
still one of the best kits ever made. So, and then M113, well, it's just another M113. I don't find the M113 particularly exciting, to be honest.
Good thing Garrison's not here anymore.
I will fight him on that one. Trumpeter in 48 scale, bringing out the Chinese J20S Mighty Dragon. This has got new parts from their older kit, so bit of a reboxing, but with new parts added to it. Again, it's a modern thing, it's a Chinese thing. Not for me, but I'm sure some people would love to build this.
Yeah, not for me either. 4 out of 10.
I'll go 4 out of 10 for that one. Hobby Boss as well, bringing out in 48 scale the FA-18F Super Hornet in the VFC 12, which I believe is a training squadron where they paint up some of the aircraft in like Russian markings and stuff like that to be used as, enemy combatants and stuff like that. So, yeah, again, modern stuff, but for originality, I'll give it a 6.
Yeah, 5.
Another Hobby Boss, 35th scale. We have the BMD-1, which, if Garrison was here again, he had to step out for the rest of the episode, unfortunately. I know he would love to have this one. And I gotta say, I do kind of like the BMDs, the BMD-1 and stuff like that, especially with the Concours. Is it the Conquer ATGM that's just like on a rail on the top? It looks very jerry-rigged. I love it.
It looks like someone took a flat bottom boat, slapped tracks to the side of it, and then put a frying pan on top of it.
That's an accurate description, I gotta say. I'll go with 5.
Yeah, 5, yeah.
Eduard bringing out in 48 scale the FK, or the MiG-21F-13 in Czechoslovak service. So these were modified MiG-21s for the in Czechoslovak service. Gotta say, I do quite like the MiG-21, and it's in 48 scale. And it's especially if I was to have this kit, I would paint it in the two-tone green, dark grey and green scheme. I'd go a 7 out of 10 for this.
I agree with you. 7 out of 10.
The MiG-21 is a cool aircraft, I gotta say.
Yeah. But being Edward, it's probably gonna be pretty good.
Yeah, that as well. So it'll be an easy kit to put together, and it'll look good.
Mm-hmm.
2 by Triumph model, one in 350 scale, and one in 700 scale. In 350 scale, we get in the Japanese Navy destroyer, the Akazuki, in 1944. And in 1700 scale, we are getting the battleship HMS Vanguard. Gotta say, I would love to have both of these.
I would take that Navy destroyer, the Japanese Navy destroyer. 8 out of 10.
Akazuki. Yeah. I'll go 8 out of 10 for both of them. The Vanguard, I don't know much about the Vanguard because I believe it was the very last British battleship ever made, and I think it was commissioned in 1946. So it didn't have much of a life. So yeah, it's kind of got the same lines as, say, a Queen Elizabeth class, but modernized. I still
very square.
Yeah, if you want to look at square, look at King George V, and the Queen Elizabeth classes, the Citadels. They're just these big square blocks, basically. So famously, if you don't know the Elizabeth class, then you might know one of the ships, the Warspite, which who now servers making that?
I don't know.
I think it's Lane or someone. So one of the weirdos in our Discord server is is fully detailing a 350 scale or 700 scale Warspite. But that's a Queen Elizabeth class battleship. That one.
Okay.
Airfix they're adding new parts to one of their existing models, the 1-24 scale Supermarine Spitfire Mark 9C. This is in the Flying Dray. They're calling it Flying Dray. This is the operation for delivering beer. So this is the Beer Away kit, which is basically just a standard Spitfire Mark 9C, but with 2 modified beer barrels underneath. ICM released one of these recently in 48 scale, but this is a 24 scale, and you can see the beer barrels are actually modified for a bit of aerodynamics. I gotta say, I would love to have this kit. I'd go an 8 or 9 out of 10 for this, because FX large scale, 32nd and 24 are actually fairly decent to build.
Yeah.
And it's
I'd say
funny.
1 out of 10.
Yeah, you're just not an FX guy or a different from 48 scale guy, are you?
Then it's British.
Some things we'll always disagree on. Another one from Amusing Hobby, the T90M. This is a new part, so the last one they brought out was a T90. Fucked if I know. But this is the T90M. Yeah, it's a Russian modern tank, and I'll go 4 out of 10 for this one. I'm not a big fan of these, but I'm sure some people would be.
Same,
just not
2 out of 10.
And lastly, from ICM, we're getting a G90 170 Truppenluft whatever. That thing's got like 30 letters into it. That is
Schutzwagen.
Yeah, that. Which is basically an improvised Wehrmacht anti-aircraft system featuring the G917T truck and a 20cm Flak 38 AA gun mounted on the back. The kit will also include rangefinder and ammo boxes for the AA gun. The AA gun can be assembled in 2 elevation angles with or without armor shielding. Decals included for both the G917T truck and the 2cm the Flak 38. For 2 paint schemes for different theatres of war. This is also in 35th scale, and I would love to have this one actually, especially in the Deutsches Afrika Corps scheme, as shown on the box art here, and also I
got a couple of these ICM trucks. I haven't built one, but the plastic and everything looks really good. So
yeah, I'll go 7 out of 10 for this. I wouldn't mind having this one myself.
Yeah, I'd go 7 out of 10.
And that is all for the hobby news. As I said, I gotta admit, not the most exciting week for new releases, but at least it's something. I think maybe the ICM and the Gecko trucks are probably the main 2 I'd be looking for myself.
Oh yeah.
Alright, moving on to what we have been working on. And of course we did have some for Garrison, but he's had to step away, unfortunately. So next time he'll go through what he has been working on. The only thing, I've been working on 2 things. Of course we have the Naval Aircraft Group build going on. And I've had this weekend build that's turned into something longer than a weekend. This is the Trumpeter 1/72 scale Ferdinand. And the kit is mostly good, apart from the tracks. And running gear, to be honest. The way how can I find the right words? Try as you might, the wheels do not want to be straight. There are a couple of short molds on the actual where the wheels go, so it's a bit they won't they won't go in properly. They're at the wrong distances, so they're all uneven. So trying to get them to line up properly, and even the suspension arms and cells don't straighten up properly, and it's just the way that you build it up. Totally not a reflection on my building skills.
No, this is just an example of fine trumpeter quality.
Yeah, it is an older kit, so probably bought it on myself. I only paid $10 for it though.
Oh.
And the only other complaint I can say is the tracks. You do get link and length tracks and rubber band tracks. The problem is the rubber band tracks, they flex in the middle of the tracks where they're not supposed to flex. The link and length. So the instructions tell you how many to put on, for certain parts. The top, along the top of the running gear, the amount they give you is not enough by a significant amount. So that's short, so you have to modify that a bit. You have to add on certain numbers and try and get it to work. Even then, the toothed sprockets, they have the key, a key sort of slot, so they slot in only one way. But then when you actually look at it, the teeth don't line up with each other. They're slightly off. So if you put tracks on, the tracks are twisted on them because they don't mesh up with the idler wheels and sprocket wheel teeth properly, which is also great.
I guess I never realized this about the Fernand. It's like there is no idler. Both of them sprocketed.
Yep. So that problem is also doubled. What else? Oh yes, the bottom track is a single length, and the track connection points are molded backwards. So all the other links all fit together because they all slot in, and then you get to the long bit, and for some reason those parts don't work because they've been molded in backwards. So then where it's supposed to mesh in like a dovetail or something like that, they don't, because I don't know why, and it's both sides. The tracks are molded. One side is molded backwards to the other, sort of thing. So they don't. It's different. I don't know why, but you have to modify the tracks a bit to actually get them to fit, and even then, it's not perfect. Hence why, I'm going to go out later today and get some replacement grass for the base that I'm making, because I want it to be. Because I'm modeling this in Summer Offensive Kursk 1943, and the grass came up to about the top of the track. I've seen a few photos of that, so that's how high I want it. So it will hide the track, which I don't mind. Only the grass I had wasn't quite long enough, so yeah, that'll be today's job after recording. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said before, we have the naval aircraft group build going along. One of the kits I'm making for this is this J model Seafire 47. This is a garage kit. It is it's an injection mold, but it was probably injected at 2 psi maybe. It's a very low injection mold, hence why you have these wonderful half-centimeter wide sprue gates you have to saw off and then I spent 2 days cleaning all the parts, and this is a 72nd scale kit. There's not many parts, and it took me 2 days to clean everything up. So, and even then, as you see in the bottom left, the interior sides have these big injection mold veins running through them that I'm going to have to get the Dremel tool out to actually grind away, just so I can get wing halves to fit, fuselage halves to fit, stuff like that. So I'm going to spend more time cleaning everything than assembling it. So once it's all clean and I have all the gaps filled in, because there are a lot of gaps as well. Everything sort of fits, but not quite fits. Yeah.
Note to self: avoid Jay's model kits.
I hate to say it, but yeah, unless you really want it, because unfortunately they do a lot of Seafire and Spitfire marks that no one else does.
Mm.
So yeah, if you're really passionate about it, you could probably figure it out. But yeah, it's we're getting there. I mean, it's going to
as long
look
as you're
good
having fun, right?
Yeah, as long as I'm totally having fun with this. Totally. Absolutely. I totally don't have to scratch build most of the cockpit. It actually tells you in the instructions, these are the parts you have to scratch build. Including one of the bulkheads. They give you a diagram, an in-scale diagram on the sheet so you can cut it out to the right size.
Might as well just give you some sheet siren and been like, okay, here you go, cut out the entire plane.
Yeah. Although, what they did do is, the C-Fire you see underneath it's got the air filters and air intakes. They actually, that's got the mesh front and back, right, for the filter and whatnot. They actually give you a rectangle of metal mesh in scale for that, and you have like way more than that's needed. So at least that's something. You get like extra material for other projects,
right?
And also the decals look amazing. So
that's good.
And that's all been working on for now. So just a bit more about the Naval Aircraft Group build, of course. Still going on until, when did we say? End of October, isn't it?
Yes.
Yep, end of October, although that might still be pushed out even further. Don't know. We're very fluid in our rules, we'll say. And of course, that is Naval Aircraft Group build. Any aircraft, fixed wing, rotary jet, lighter than air, any time period from inception of human flight to now. Said aircraft must be in the service of a nation's naval or air maritime defense, or have a role which is primarily maritime in nature, like the Coastal Command. Completion build will run from 1st of July to, we say 30th of September here, it's 30th of October. As usual, competition submissions must include a photo of the kit and box as well as 10 detail photos for judgment. Recreational can include already finished and shelf queens. Winners to be announced. We are still figuring out what to give the winner. But of course, you can join the Discord and join in. You can announce it on our Facebook page, Micro Machines Podcast, or on our. You can tag us into. You can tag our group build Instagram page. That is MMP Group Builds. And follow that. We'll be showing updates of what people have been working on and any information and stuff like that. And that brings us to the end of another episode. However, there is still one more thing we always have to do when we come to the end of our episodes, and that is to thank our Patreon supporters. So, of course, we have our Pinju supporters, Paul Gallagher, Lord Floki, Robert Judson, Burrell Mastroeni, and Liam Barnett, as well as our Pinju followers on Patreon didn't let me know that we got one more Pinju follower, Robert Brisbane and Frank Little. You guys, we love your support of us, and we continue to thank you every episode because you guys deserve it. You help us out with quite a few things around for the podcast, and you also get access to a bit of extra content as well if you do join our Patreon. That is Patreon.com/Micro Machines Podcast. And you can join the Patreon for $3 a month, and every so often you'll get a new post there, such as, say, we record a bit that can't go on YouTube, it'll go on Patreon, or if there's anything extra, whatever to do with the podcast, it will go up there. Although I do apologize, I do need to be a bit more active with posting things on that, so yeah, you guys deserve that much at least. However, with that being said, we have now come to the end of an episode. And not a bad little episode, I gotta say.
No, it was. I don't know. I'm sorry. I do apologize. I've had a massive headache through most of this. So.
I think you need to go and have a bit of a lie down after this.
Well, I gotta stay up and get my sleeping schedule swapped back to night shift so I can go back to work tomorrow.
Oh, that sounds fun. Well, I can only say drink a lot of water and have a few painkillers.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, well, that is it. With that, because Clint needs to go have a lie down, we shall end the episode. So, if you have been watching and listening this far, thank you for listening to the Micro Machines Podcast. Your continued support helps us around, and yeah, we have a lot of interesting things coming in the future, so definitely watch out for that. We're trying to line up a few guests and stuff like that, so also do apologies for our bit of a change in our schedule in terms of time and stuff, but there's just outside factors for that, so we do try and record as often as we can, as possible, so yeah. We thank you for keeping with us. And that is it. So, me and the guys from the podcast would like to say, we'll see you guys in the next episode, and bye for now.
See ya.